So are we ready for another question? We have one from Emily Grace here. And she asked, do you have any resources to help with reading comprehension? My kids can read. It's just having them tell me what they just read is very difficult and anxiety producing for them.
I don't know that I have any direct resources for that, but I think one of the things that you can do, Emily, is just to break it down into smaller chunks. Mm-hmm. And sometimes for kids, that means, 2 sentences at a time rather than 2 pages, which may be overwhelming. And I would ask them very specific questions about the reading, not the, well, what did you think? Type things, because they get so overwhelmed with that. You can direct your questions toward the characters, the settings, what conflict they had. I would just encourage you to be very, very specific with the questions you ask and then broaden out from that point. And that may take a little bit of time to get to, especially with younger kids. They can't think on the broader, not all of them, but obviously some of them, have a lot of difficulty with the abstract pieces of it. They look for the concrete things that happened in the book. He went up the hill. He got a pail of water. They can't do metaphors. They can't do kind of those abstract thoughts. Right. So just be very specific in your questions when you start out. And I don't know if anybody else has specific resources for comprehension.
Yeah. Well, I've learned too that some of the resources that I used for comprehension, they were written in a way that we don't communicate at home. And so my children found them very confusing. And so I made up my own questions because that's the way we talked in our house. Yeah. It was much easier for them to understand what the question was. My goal was to eventually get them to that point, because if they're taking like a test where they have to understand how the tester is wanting the question answered, they have to get to that point. But when they first start out, don't start out confusing them with the questions as well as the process of answering comprehension questions. Yes, it's too overwhelming and too much for them. It has to be broken down into much more manageable bites for them.